flip the page, and let's go to dominant 7, because this takes a little bit more. Dominant 7 has a couple things we got to bring out. I'm going to use the D scale, because I think that's what's on there. I will save you the trouble, because I will write it, even though I know you all have it memorized. Now, the formula for the dominant 7 chord is a 1, 3, 5, and a flat 7. Right? We have the major third, we have the flat 7. So, if we're going to make a D7 chord, that's the symbol, that's the shortcut. Careful, because a lot of people think they see that and they think it means major 7. They see that and think it means something else. D7 is this other piece of information. Our notes are going to be D, F sharp, A, and C. Sounds like this. Somebody said sharp and it's wrong. C sharp is the major 7. We want to flat the 7. C sharp down a half step is C natural. Okay? Now, here's where it gets fun. You remember how the prior two 7th chords both had perfect fifths in them, and major thirds, and minor thirds. There's a certain consonance to them. There's a certain stability. It sounds at peace. It sounds at rest. Yeah? Mm-hmm. This guy presents a different thing. Here's our major triad, D, F sharp, A, no problem. Let me do P5, let me keep it consistent right then. Major third, minor third. Now this guy is 10 half steps, minor 7. This guy is yet another minor third. So we got a major third and then minor minor, which we haven't seen that before. Here's where it gets fun. Check this out. What's the distance in half steps between an F sharp and a C? What's the distance in half steps? Somebody said 6. Was that Jack Rabbit?
6. Yeah.
Dude, I just heard you.
Kidding.
Just kidding. Put it back in the book. Okay. What do we call 6 half steps?
Tritone.
And the people said?
Tritone.
Right. Okay. Now, what is it about the tritone from a feel perspective? Tritone. Psycho strings. Tension. It's not consonant. It's very dissonant. It wants to resolve itself. Okay? So if I, in a very basic way, take a D7 chord, I'm going to play those 4 notes. Doesn't it feel like it wants to resolve itself? To some other chord, right? I set it up, I can't walk away from it. I got to finish it, right? So and the reason why is because inside the dominant 7th chord is this tritone. There's tension built into the chord. If I just play it, I gotta take it the next step. I gotta resolve it to something else. In one aspect of music, when things are diatonic, when things are of the major scale, if you remember Module 8, we were looking at the number system. The 1 chord's always major, the 2 chords are always minor, and so forth. We get a little bit down the road in our theory, we're going to look at all these 7th chords have their own associated formula of the chords that happen. So if I take a G major scale and I make a 4-note chord using the different scale degrees like we've done before, but now instead of triads we're doing 4-note chords, I would do a major 7, 1, 3, 5, 7, G, B, D, F sharp, because it's all part of the major scale. But the 2 chord would end up being a minor 7th chord. So it would be A, C, E, G, according to our formulas, minor 7th. This is going to get done in detail later, so don't let it distract you. But I'll tell you, if you look at the major scale, and you make 4-note chords on each of those scale degrees, you only find a dominant 7 chord one place, and that's on the 5th scale degree. So if we were in the key of G major, and I built a chord on the D, or the 5, it comes out as a dominant 7 chord. Okay? And when that 5 chord has a dominant 7th on it, it wants to resolve back to 1. So D is the 5 of G. And as soon as I go D dominant 7, oh, I want to play a G major chord just to get us back home. As soon as I hit a D7 chord without any other context, I already set up a G tonal center. Because now this feels like home. The other two chords by themselves, the major 7 and the minor 7, they just live. They live out of context. They don't necessarily imply a specific tonal center. It could be a lot of things. When I play a G major 7 chord, it could be the 1 chord, it could be the 4 of D. You know, it could be a couple of different things. But a dominant 7 chord, as soon as I hit D7 like that, we're in G major, baby, because that's the 5 of the 1, right? As soon as I do this, in major scale diatonic type music. Now, there's a huge exception where this tension will not feel like it has to be resolved, but will feel like home. And that's in a blues type tonality. Now, we get into the next course, we get into the other scales, we talk about the blues scale, dominant scale, different things, okay? But I want you to hear in your head this right here. I want you to resolve to G, right? As soon as I play that, it feels like it's got to play. But if I do the blues, and I make D7 the 1 chord, and I play the blues for a while, that context will make you feel like this chord is at rest, that it doesn't need to resolve. Okay? So here we go. I've been down so long, being down don't bother me. I've been down so long, being down don't bother me. I'm gonna take all my troubles, drown them in the deep blue sea. Now listen to this right here. Same exact notes. Feels like we're home, doesn't it? It doesn't have to resolve because we put it in the context of a blues tonality. Okay? So the dominant 7 in blues-based music becomes the 1 chord. It becomes the home. In diatonic type music, it's usually the 5 chord. Okay? The tritone has a built-in tension that if you put the all bluesy tonality, it feels perfect. If it's non-bluesy, it's got to resolve itself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, everybody turn to page 39. We're looking at the other 7th chord. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because we basically have established how these intervals interrelate, how they go, but notice it's a minor triad, the 1, flat 3, and 5, minor third on the bottom, major third above that, and then on top of that is another major third. I gave you the example earlier where it becomes a nice way of ending a minor song to kind of give it that little extra love, nuance, but it's not used much out of that. Notice that this time, though, the distance between the 3rd and the 7th scale degree is wider this time because we've got the flat 3rd and we've got the major 7th. So that distance had been a perfect 5th for our first couple of chords. It was a tritone on our most recent chords. Now it's an augmented 5th. Okay, it's 7 half steps. And that's partly what gives it that odd, kind of unsettled feeling. Here's an example. Sorry. Oh my gosh. Erase. So here's minor triad with a major 7, and this, we can call it a major 6th. Technically, it's better to call it an augmented 5th. Same thing. So it's kind of settled, but it's not. It's kind of this in-between thing. That's the minor major 7 chord. Again, there's no shortcut symbol. It's actually spelled out as a minor major 7. Okay? Not used very often, but you should mess around with it so you can kind of get used to how you use it. So now, let's go to the next page and look at 2 varieties of 6th chords. Before we get into this, let me just make this statement. Understand, back up, eagle eye for a second. You got 12 slices, 12 different notes you can choose from. We could combine those 12 notes into all kinds of combinations. There's an not infinite, it's finite, but there's a huge number of possible combinations. But there's only a smaller number that is actually musically useful and that sounds good. That's why the major triad is the first thing we teach, because that's the one that's most universal, sounds nice and great. As we're going deeper, we're just finding more options of combinations of the slices and just giving them names. That's all this is. It's much simpler than you think, right? These are the most musically useful, most musically common combinations of the pool of 12 slices, okay? So keep that in mind as we're going forward. There's 2 types of 6th chords that are typically used. Keep in mind that in both types of 6th chords, that the 6th itself remains major. If you try to do a flat 6, it sounds more like an augmented 5th or an augmented type of a chord, right? Augmented triad 1-3, sharp 5, isn't the sharp 5 and the flat 6 the same thing, right? So typically if you're using that note or that interval, you're going to call it an augmented something versus a flatted 6 something, right? So in both of these cases, the 6th itself remains major. So we've got the formula 1-3-5 with an added 6 to it, a major triad. Now here's where some people get confused. A minor 6th does not mean that the 6th interval is minor. It means that it has a minor triad, boom, and then you add the major 6. Here's the difference. Here's C chord, C major. 1, 3, 5, and then I add the 6. Sorry. So, if we look at that in the key of F, major 6th, that chord would have an F, A, C, and a D in it. Make sense? Easy schmeezy. An F minor 6th, fairly close. Has a minor triad. Here's a place that I use an F minor 6 all the time. Is I will treat it as if it's an alternate 4 chord. In Music Theory 3, we talk about substitutions and what you can add some, take an existing chord and what options you can use to spice it up. What other chords you can substitute in there. So if you have a chord, a common C diatonic scale thing where you got the C chord and the F chord and the G and it's very major. That's all C major scale, right? It's very diatonic. So here's the 1, 4, 6, 5. And then instead of the straight 4, I throw in a minor 6. And I've been in C, so instead of the F major, I'll substitute an F minor 6. Okay? I'm going to do the same progression again. Here's the 1 and then the regular 4. 6, 5. And then the F minor 6. Instead of F major, instead of the major third, I'm going to take it down. Another actually really common one is to do 1 chord, 5. Here's regular 4, and then a minor 6. It's even better on guitar, right? So that's a great substitution as a 4 chord instead of typically a 4 major to throw in the 4 minor 6. Question, Mr.
You said 4. Are you doing the Nashville numbers when you say 4?
I was.
Okay.
I was. So I was talking about, I was in the key of C. F would have been 4. And typically, F would be a major chord in that chord. I
just want to make sure I was interpreting what you were saying.
Yeah, and I said it quick, and I'm glad you asked. Okay. Major 6th chord. So we take a major or a minor triad, and we're adding a 6th to it. Okay.